Hello and welcome to Data, Insight and Action. This series is all about how we take the data that we generate, how we create some insight, but most importantly, what we do with it. What's the action that is involved? So today we've got Mike Hill from Moving Communities having a chat with us, and we're going to talk about the pilots that have been run for the Moving Communities Community Survey. So just before we start, Mike, talk about the Community Survey. How does it actually work?
Afternoon, Dave, first of all. So, yeah, the community survey is a standardised sector-wide survey which is aimed at finding out what the attitudes and perceptions of the whole community are towards physical activity, but with particular focus on indoor leisure provision and outdoor leisure provision as well. It also does touch upon two other sort of slightly smaller areas of active travel, which is becoming increasingly important, and also family fitness. So what's different between adults that don't have children compared to those that have younger children, and what do we need to be thinking about differently for all of those target groups? And really the power of it, two things I think are the power. First of all, for the first time across the whole sector, we're going to be getting hundreds of local authorities using the same survey, which allows us to do really valuable benchmarking. And secondly, the key thing is that working with Sheffield Hallam and Simon Shibley at the Sports Industry Research Centre, we've developed some weighting algorithms so that we can overcome some of the inbuilt biases that self-selection online surveys have. Typically, I'm sure you're aware, we tend to get more women and older people completing these surveys, which obviously skews the results. So with these algorithms, which are linked back to the 21 census, we can now weight those people that are underrepresented and underweight those that are overrepresented to get much more accurate results.
Okay, and so because there is a little bit of confusion out there, because I know, because I get asked this question a lot, the difference between the community survey and the customer experience survey is basically the people we're asking the question of, isn't it? So what's the two core differences between the surveys?
Yeah. So moving the community survey, it's in the words, isn't it? It's on the tin. Community survey is about the whole community, whether they're users or not. Now, obviously, if you go out to the wider community, you're going to get 10 to 15% of people, perhaps, that answer it that are currently using private or public sector health and fitness, sports, leisure facilities. So it's not just a non-user survey. We've moved away from that. So the community survey is for the whole community. It's an online survey, which we work with local authorities and operators to publicise out to the whole community. The customer experience survey is exactly what it says. It's about measuring the experience of customers, current users of the indoor leisure facilities. And the way we access those is through those traditional way of just emailing out and promoting it via social media, but only to the users and customers.
Yeah. And it's really important to get that differentiation, because we're finally, as a sector, being able to find out what people who don't participate are feeling and thinking. And that's what you're going to talk about today, isn't it? It's the results from the pilots that we've been doing. So you've got a great background there. It's telling us the 5 key messages. So what are the things that we found out as a result of doing the pilot?
Okay, Dave. So these results I'm going to talk to you today are from the pilot that took place with 6 local authorities throughout last spring and summer, with the report being produced in October. And over those 6 local authorities, we had 4,500, just over 4,500 sample. And that's a nice big sample. So what it's allowed us to do is to get a great picture across the country based on that sample of the general questions. But specifically what I'm really interested in and what I want to talk to you today about is some of the nuances, some of the differences that we're pulling out between those people that are currently active and those that are inactive. And our definitions that we've used, people who are active are doing 5 times 30 or 150 minutes across a week. Those people that are inactive are doing nothing. Okay, right. Not even 1 times 30 or 30 minutes across the week. So we've got very clear definitions. And what I'm going to be suggesting today is that we need to think really carefully about how we promote, message, market, encourage those different groups, those people that are already active. And yes, we want to get them active more, but if your focus is on getting those people who are inactive to do a little bit, then we need to really nuance the messages and the marketing that we send out to them.
Okay, so what are the key things that came out of the pilot then, Mike?
So 5 key messages, and then I'm going to focus in on a couple of them with some more detail. So first of all, generally speaking, it's really interesting when we ask people how they want to, what's the best way of them increasing their physical activity. Indoor leisure is the more attractive route to most people, both inactive and active. But for inactive people, it's even more important. They're keener to come and use indoor leisure facilities compared to outdoor or sports, etc., etc. Secondly, motivation and someone to attend with is much more important to the inactive than the active. And that's probably fairly obvious that if you're currently active, you've already got some of that confidence and know-how about how to do things. So for the inactive, we really need to focus on those things. Number three, one of the things we always ask is how important exclusive sessions are. And what I mean by that is ones that are targeted at particular genders, particular age groups, and the inactive see those groups as being much more important than the active. Fourth, price and affordability of indoor leisure is much more of an issue and therefore a barrier to the inactive than it is to the active. So if we want to just keep getting the same people coming but coming more, we don't need to focus quite so much on price affordability. But if we want to get the inactive coming into indoor leisure centres, then we can't ignore the fact that the perception of price and affordability is really crucial. And then finally, let's move to outdoor spaces. One of the key things that came out of this was how important the whole issue of crime, antisocial behaviour and feeling of safety was. It's the number one reason why people don't exercise outdoor as much as they would like to. And again, it's even more important to the inactive than it is relatively compared to the active.
Okay, there's some interesting stats there. I always remember as a 23-year-old temporary manager thinking I can't wait to be 50 so I can join the 50 plus group on Tuesdays and Thursdays. But you can see how that people like me type of perception for those very exclusive sessions are really important to the inactive.
Absolutely.
Okay, so there's some really good insight there, sort of generous across the 5 pieces. You wanted to focus on 2. So what are those 2 things you want to talk to us about?
Yeah, let me just flash up a couple of slides. Can you see that one, Dave?
Yeah, I can. Just hit the little display screen on the bottom right-hand corner so it fills the screen behind us.
Always a good idea from current slide. There we go. Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, so let's go back to that question. In which of the following areas would you like to see increases in your physical activity? So this is giving you the details of this question that I mentioned. The blue columns represent the inactive and the red columns represent the active. So you can see straight away there that we've got a 7% difference. It's 7% more relatively important to the inactive group, indoor leisure, than to the active. But when we get to the outdoor leisure, it's the other way around. Actually, active people are more likely to do more outdoors than the indoor. But then when we get back to travel, it's really interesting because when we ask about, well, how likely are you to increase your physical activity by walking, cycling, wheeling, etc., again, the inactive people come to the forefront and say, well, actually, yes, that's something that I'm more likely to do. And then those final 2 elements up here are both sport. So we've got sport, individual, non-competitive, and then organised traditional sport. You can see how they are relatively less attractive to the inactive compared to the active. So some of this is quite obvious, but some of it I think is counterintuitive, perhaps, because we often think, well, the easiest thing for people who are inactive is just to encourage them to go out for walks and parks and things like this, but it's not. You can see that significantly more of those inactive people are more likely to be encouraged by indoor leisure than compared to outdoor.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really interesting. And I guess it links into some of the walking groups that we're starting to see form. So that group that's specific for the inactive, that's done during the day, so it's in a safer environment, etc. Okay. So what else? You said there was 2 things. What's the second?
Yeah. And what you're just talking about there about groups and motivation feeds in nicely to this second slide that I want to focus on. So again, blue columns are inactive, red columns are active. And look at this one down the bottom here. Something to motivate me is almost twice as important to the inactive than it is to the active. Right. So we, again, perhaps, we know this already, that someone who's active doesn't need quite so much motivation, but it's almost twice as important to the inactive. So we've got to get that whole motivation think absolutely right. And let's look at the other areas where the inactive are saying it's more important. And we have to jump down here. More confidence to take part. And look at this one, almost twice as important to the inactive, someone to attend with. So those people that are already active, maybe doing it by themselves with other people, it's much relatively less important to find someone to attend with. So if we want to get these inactive people going, we need to be looking at these areas. We need to be looking at motivation. We need to be looking at getting them out with buddies or in groups and building up confidence. And it's these ones here: availability of sessions, location of service sites, and time in the sessions, where we don't see the difference between the two groups.
Yeah, absolutely. So when we asked that something to motivate me, did we find out what types of things would motivate people?
Not specifically,
right.
But I think the cue is, I think this thing here, this around attendance, and I can talk about certainly experience from a lot of focus groups that we've done where we're really drilling in depth and speaking to people who are inactive and what would encourage them. So many of them talk about finding the right peer group or buddy that they feel comfortable to join in with, and that links, I guess, back to that exclusive sessions as well.
Yeah.
So perhaps the ideal way of attracting these inactive people into activity is looking at indoor leisure sessions where there is motivation provided, and they are doing it as part of a like-minded or like-positioned peer group, i.e. people that they can associate with.
It'll be really interesting if we could do some work in Wolverhampton and see if the Fit Miles, the reward process, has had an effect on this, and if we can get some contact on that. Okay, Mike, that's really useful. So when we've done these works with the pilot authorities and we've fed back the information and insight, what are the things that people are doing with this? How are they converting the data, the insight we've created, into actual actions? Have we had any feedback on that?
Yeah, I've had a feedback from a couple of local authorities. Leeds, for example, would be the classic one where I guess this is influencing things on a strategic but also on a tactical level. Right. So strategically, it is helping to inform people's overall plans and strategies for how they increase physical activity. And I think being really clear about who they are targeting. Sometimes, you can spend a lot more time and money getting an inactive person to do some activity than getting active people to be more active. But from a health and an overall social benefit, it may well be that money is worth spending because you're getting someone that's doing nothing to doing 3 times 30 or, about 100, 150 minutes a week. Yeah. And the chances are that it's that latter one that you're going to start seeing the increase, the benefits of someone being slightly healthier in terms of spending less money on them as they grow older, and in terms of health and illness repercussions.
Yeah, it certainly has a bigger impact, doesn't it, if you can target those inactive people?
Definitely, yeah. Getting people from 0 to 3 is going to bring a lot more benefit than getting someone from 3 to 5 sessions, for example. So yeah, definitely informing the strategy, and then secondly, I think it's informed on a much more tactical level, exactly what we've been talking about. What sort of sessions do we need to put on to try and get inactive people who just don't have the exercise habit at all to come out in? So certainly Leeds and Pendle have been looking at how they can tweak and change what they're providing now based on this sort of insight.
Brilliant. Okay, well, thank you very much, Mike. All of this detail and content is available at Moving Communities at the website, also on LinkedIn, Twitter. Is there any way, do people get in contact with you if they want to take part in the community survey?
Yeah. So now we finished the pilot off last October. The full community survey has been launched a few months. Every local authority in England is eligible to undertake the free what we call the freemium service of the Moving Community Survey. So they can just contact myself, go to the Moving Communities website. There's an inquiry form there. We also have what we call a premium service, which gives the benchmarking and the weighting as well. Yeah. So we've already got about 30 local authorities down to do it this calendar year. Yeah. Our target is to get up to 100 by year 2.
Okay, fantastic. Well, Mike, thank you very much for your time today. Really useful. Take care, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, Dave.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye now.